Silly. Silly girl, what are you thinking? All right, so happy Father's Day. Let me just take a moment first. My talk isn't really about dads, but I would like to acknowledge those of you who are fathers in any way, shape, or form, regardless of gender, regardless of how. If you consider yourself a father, will you stand up and let us applaud you? Sizes and all genders. It's about the role that we play. I consider myself a mother and a father to four-leggeds, furry babies, because I play all those roles. So when I think about Father's Day, it's just as tricky as Mother's Day, because some of you had the best fathers in the world. Some of you had those stellar dads that show up in the Norman Rockwell pictures. Those dads that were always there for you, those dads who taught you how to play catch or were there to help you with your homework. Some people had nothing like that. Some people have dads that were absent completely. Some people didn't have fathers around at all. And some of you had fathers who were just, well, darn right, not so good. And so it's really this tender place that I want each of you to just hold that however you do. So if you're acknowledging yourself as a father, know that you are doing the best you can at every given moment, and you can always wake up to do it even better. And when you think about your own father experience, I invite you, as I talk the rest of this message, to keep Dad in the back of your mind, because this talk today could apply to your father relationship. Not necessarily. So I know you all do with it what you want to do with it anyway. Just keep that in the back of your mind. That might relate a little bit to my father relationship. So for those of you who are doing a fatherly role, it's a big job. So if you haven't noticed, as humans, sometimes we have difficulties. Have you noticed? Burying our head in the sand is a really good thing. Said no one ever. Hiding our head in the sand doesn't help. And really, it's about how do we handle our difficulties. Because we're all going to have them. Being on a spiritual journey in no way guarantees that you will stop having difficulties. Sorry. I remember being so disappointed when I became part of this spiritual way of thinking and living. It's like, oh good, I can't wait until I have absolutely no more problems because I'll be so enlightened. Okay, so here's the good news, is that it does change. As the longer you're on this path, the less difficulties you encounter because you stop attracting them. The more you get good at dealing with them is what we're going to talk about today. But difficulties here on this earth as a human being, they're just part of the package, all right? So if you're trying to get rid of them altogether, it's the wrong place to look. What we want to look at instead is, what do I do to transform this, all right? So I'm going to start with a story that one of my colleagues actually reminded me of in Science Mind magazine. The story says, there's a wonderful king who had a boulder put on a road leading into his kingdom. The king then hides to see if anyone will remove it. Many wealthy people come by, but they all choose to go around it. After a while, a peasant carrying a heavy load comes along. He puts down his pack and he struggles with the boulder. After pushing and straining for quite a while, he succeeds in pushing the boulder aside. He then sees a purse where the boulder had been, and inside he finds many gold pieces and a note from the king declaring that it all belongs to the person who removes the boulder. The moral of the story is that every obstacle prevents an opportunity to improve our condition. The story says a whole lot about what this message is about today. So you may say, was he just lucky? Was he just a lucky one who moved the boulder aside and found the coins? We have the advantage of hearing this story from the whole picture, don't we? I told you the whole story. So we get the bird's eye view of the whole entire thing. That gives us insight. We see that as he struggled, he got the good. But in the story itself, if you take it literally, it's not necessarily a literal story, right? But what a great meaning. As this man is walking along, he doesn't know. He doesn't have the insight that we have. He doesn't know there's anything waiting on the other side. You see? If you are the one walking up to that boulder, you have no idea what good might be coming. The man could have cussed and screamed at that boulder. He could have gone around it like many people did. But something inside him said, let me move this boulder. There's maybe a whole other story in that, by the way, because who knows what he might have been thinking. I'm going to move this to do good for others, perhaps. You know, there might have been a whole lot going on in his mind. But he didn't have the foresight to know that there was something good waiting on the other side. That tells me so much about how I approach the boulders in my life, how I come up to those obstacles in my life. Because we have options. When the difficulties arise, we have options. And now that may sound like really obvious. Of course we have options. But what I know about us humans, we often go to our default setting. Why me? Damn boulder! I can't believe you, fill in whatever that blanket is, whatever those default settings, wallow in it for a while. I can't believe that boulder was in my way. It was so heavy. You should have seen how hard I had to work to remove it out of the road. It took me hours. Pity, right? We go to our default settings. If we're honest, everybody has them. Everybody has them. The trick then is to be able to notice, I just went to my default setting. I forgot that this difficulty might bring with it a purse of gold on the other side. I might have something to learn here that I really need to learn. So in that moment is when I'm coming up to the boulder. This is where being this philosophy for a long time does kick in. You ask it quicker. So rather than going on that hours and hours and hours at the pity party and how hard I had to work and all that whiny stuff, I go, okay, all right, I see it. I ran to that place. I ran to my default setting. What do I want to do instead? What option do I want to use right now? Sometimes the answer is all of the above. Sometimes we have to go through the about the boulder before we can say, maybe there's something to learn here. Sometimes we have to shout it out. You know, not to harm somebody else, but like maybe with our favorite pillow. Anybody ever punched a pillow? Yeah. Sometimes we need to get it out. So I'm not saying we should bury our head in the sand because, as we said, it didn't work. But sometimes we need to go through each step of the process. Fight it a little bit, but wake up as quick as we can, which is the point of today. What option do I have, and what option am I using today? Am I going to wallow in it forever? Am I going to blame somebody? Or am I going to say, all right, enough, shouted it out, and I'm going to wake up to the lesson? Wake up. My topic, using difficulties for awakening. Just to make sure everybody's on the same page together with the word awakening. What I mean by awakening is ultimately waking up to our true identity as a spiritual being. If you're new to this philosophy, this is one of the big things that we say. God is not separate from you. It is not some man in the sky to appease. But God is the energy, the love, the givingness of all life. And it is right here where we are. It is moving through us by means of us. And we are here to wake up to that as best we can on any given day. So awakening to me means waking up to that truth. That right here where we are, the true identity of me is not a mere human being struggling with boulders, but rather a divine being learning what I can from the boulder. All right? So just to make sure we're all on that same page with that. Easier said than done, I know, but the more we practice, the better we get. I want to tell you one of my wake-up stories. This happened about 26 years ago, and it was when I really began to wake up in a spiritual way to understanding who I am. Because previous to this moment, God for me was kind of non-existent. Because I didn't believe in that God. And so I was in a relationship an X,